What's up? It's Mike Mal, and you are listening to the Athletor Podcast, where we dive into the processes, mindsets, strategies of some of the most successful athletes and coaches from all walks of life. What's up? It's Mike Mal. You're watching the Athletor Podcast. This week's guest is Doug Schwab, and we caught Doug Schwab on an incredibly salty day. It was actually the day that they're tearing down West Gym. He goes back into the laurels of time and talks about the lore that is the West Gym dual meet. Amazing stuff from Schwab this week. Make sure to check out his magic wand question and how he answers it. It's all coming up next on the Athletor Podcast. Doug Schwab, we are on, man. It is not easy tying you down, Doug Schwab. It's not easy getting a hold of you, and it certainly isn't easy getting a hold of you when anything has to do with any type of, phones or computers and things like that. But thank you very much for coming on, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't like to be locked down,
I've heard.
Yeah.
All right. You called me in a bit of a huff, and we won't even bring up what kind of a huff or the words that you used. But I will say this, it does have to be touched on, because this is something that Lee and I spoke about a few months back when we had Lee on the podcast. West Gym today is getting torn down, and I'd like to get your perspective on it. But if I'm going to be honest, I'm more interested in your thoughts, or at least your understanding of what the perspective is from the people that actually tore it down. Okay. So first things first, what type of emotions are going through you right now, and why?
Well, I think there's a loss there. I mean, you mourn losses, right? I mean, and it's a loss. And people can say, well, it's just a building. It's not just the building, it's what happened within that building. You're talking about 18 to 22-year-olds that those are transformative years. Those are kids that are leaving home for the first time, and they're coming into that room, and they're looking for their next 80, 60 or 70 or 80 year-long friends, right? And they're building those relationships, but also you get to see really boys become men because they're tested. I mean, they get out of their comfort zone so much. And I mean, you see the bonds that wrestling builds. And it was done in that building. I mean, we weren't the only ones that were in there, though. I mean, volleyball, they might have had a more formidable, main setup than we did. I mean, if you see it was like a hornet's nest. I mean, you talk about it for wrestling, but for volleyball, it was one of the most incredible atmospheres too. And then it was the men's gym, and everyone went through there. You talk about of the building needs to be remembered, and obviously that's our job. It's my job as a coach. It's to continue to keep those stories moving. But that's probably my biggest issue is I don't think the building got celebrated in anywhere near where it should have been. And I don't think a lot of people got to mourn that loss, so to speak, or give their last respects. That's a really important piece to me, the grieving process. And I know everyone's going to be like, like I said, it's a building. But
no, and how about this? And I got to interrupt you here, and I'm not going to make this about me right now, but I do have an anecdote that I think will speak to what you're saying. Okay, the last time my son was in West Gym, the first time my son was in West Gym, we flew into Des Moines, and when we did, I think it was preseason nationals or something like that, was at UNI, and so we flew into Des Moines and we stopped off in Iowa City to check out their practice. Okay. So we spent time in Carver Hawkeye. Now it's not the new room. It's the old room. Okay. But as we walk in, there's a computer or a monitor that has the national champions on it. They have the team national champions. They have all the All-Americans that are kind of flashing by. You walk in, nice plaques that have, obviously you know what I'm talking about, but just for the listener, there's a wall of All-Americans, there's a wall of national champions, blah, 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 blah. And he was very taken aback. He's like, wow, this is super cool. Then we leave practice in Iowa City, we drive to Cedar Falls. And it just so happens I want to get a sauna in. So, we go to West Gym, and he and I get a workout in, and we get a sauna in. And as I'm kind of getting ready for the sauna, he starts walking around the halls, and he sees the Parker Keckeisen life size, on the wall, and he sees, the national champions. He sees Drew, and he sees the picture from 1919 or whatever the heck,
Yep.
with a horsehair mat on the floor and the gym packed. And so he's looking at all this stuff and kind of ingesting it. And we go sit in the sauna, and we have a good time, and we leave, and we have dinner. And I said, well, which one did you like better? He's like, well, they're different. I go, I understand that, but which one did you like better? And he said, well, in Iowa, you can see the history. They show it to you. You can see it. He said, in West Gym, you can feel it. He's like, when you touch the walls, the paint on the walls feels like it's sweating. Because, and I'm like, well, guess what? In February at a dual meet, it was hot in there. It was warm. And I'm trying to explain to him, the matches that I've seen in West Gym and how it would shake. And the only thing I could liken it to, and I know you're going to hate this because you're a stupid Sox fan, but was the old Yankee Stadium. Like when Mariano would come out, it would literally
Hold on one second.
shake. To prove the point, though, is like, no, it is not just a building. It is not just 4 brick walls. Okay. There is history. There is emotion there. It pulls something out of you. To hear that radiator clank to me was something went off in me. I don't know what it was. The first time I ever coached a MMA fighter, and they closed that door, and it went clink, clank. And I went, like, something inside me went, oh shit, that's for real. That's for real. Something about that radiator clanking, that old school clank, clank, clank was just primal. And no, it's not just a building, brother.
Yeah, the feeling, and like, you want to try to duplicate that. It's a hard thing. Just, I mean, like you said, you feel the history when you walk through the walls, and it just, it holds it in. But I think some of that is, the association that we have, or the nostalgia, so to speak. It's because you give so much. I think when you sacrifice so much for something and something bigger than yourself, and I think you're just willing to give, and it's in that building. Like, there's a feeling and association with it that, and you've talked about, I mean, right? I mean, all the years came before them, and the right kind of kids. So you kind of go back to your son, like, the right kind of kids are like, that's what I like that. That's what I want to be around. I want to be around that. Like, I don't need the shiny and new. I want the substance. I want the feel. I want, something that grabs a hold of me. And, that's the kind of kids that we've have typically got at UNI, and continue to get. And I think that's part of why they stay, because, they're bought into something, and I keep saying something bigger, but I think until you're able to do that, I think you're going to have a hard time understanding how you can have that kind of emotional connection with a building. If you have never given that much of yourself to something, and I think it's hard to be connected to a team, and I can tell you this, that no matter where we go, we're going to have that, and we're going to bring it with us,
It's nice to say. I love that you're saying that. And you know what? I got to be honest with you, Dougie. I believe you. I wouldn't believe everyone. I really wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because that place is pretty magical, right? But
and that's something that, for me, I'm gonna continue to fight for. And I'm gonna, like, in a new building, we got to have some elements of the West Gym. You have to pay homage to it and its history, and then we have to pay to the history of the program. Like you said, you walk through those walls. Sandy Stevens really got that going. That wall of champions. That was something that she's like, hey, we got to make sure that we honor the history of our program, and everyone comes in and they can see it, and it's fully right in front of them. I look forward to putting that back together in the new building, and then kind of mixing some of the old and new. And so, you talk about Yankee Stadium, I'll talk about Fenway Park if you've ever been there.
Never heard of it.
They've mixed the old and the new so well, because you can still feel the history of it, and then you have some of the new amenities. And to me, that's
which is and I'll be completely honest with you, and this is off topic, of course, but the new Yankee Stadium did not do. It's gross. It's gross. It's an abomination. And this is coming from a diehard Yankee fan. It's an abomination. I won't go. I took my son once. I was like, it's gross. It feels like I'm at a Costco. Sorry, go ahead.
But that's so if we go back to kind of the kids that I want to attract, and talking about being coachable and gritty and selfless and high level personal responsibility, that when they come into that building, know that's it like I belong here, right? I mean, they have that feeling and they association with it. And, for me, we got to keep those stories rolling. Heck, we got moved out of that building, and, we still had a national champion this year because of the people, because of, what these guys, what they're willing to buy into. They're buying into each other, by themselves, buying the program. So wherever we go, that's where the program's at. I would rather had it in the West Gym for another 100 years. Absolutely. But I'm looking at, let's put the next 100-year building together, and let's make sure that we honor our history and honor the West Gym, because it deserves to be honored. And, that's probably my biggest sticking point, Mike, is that it did not get honored. It didn't get ushered out like it deserved to be. And I will say that till the end of time. And,
that's fair.
And I think, we did a few things, but people would just want to be able to pay their respects to the building because of everything that happened for them and in that building. And they understand what it meant to them. And when you don't have that, it can leave a sour taste for people.
Sure.
And we never want to do that. But the new place, I can tell you this, that hopefully people come in and are like, it's not the West Gym, but damn, I love this place.
Good.
That's what we want to be able to have.
So here's the thing. You talked about recruiting athletes that feel that way and are more excited about building that emotional connection to a town, right? A staff, a team, a lifestyle, building that type of connection. How do you recruit that, Schwabby? That ain't easy, is it?
I know enough people throughout the country, and I start to have relationships with people, and then, I can see that a lot of kids can compete, right? I mean, there's a lot of really good wrestlers out there, and there's no shortage of ability and talent and skill, and coaching. There's getting to be better coaches and these clubs that are coming up. So there's no loss of, I think, of having but there are some. Okay, will a kid look past, where we're at right now? What I'm saying? Are they more concerned about, what else am I getting other than the investment that they're getting from the coaches and the people that they're going to be around? Because to me, the people they're going to be around has to be their number one concern, because that's what's going to have the most impact on them. And it's going to help. Obviously, like I said, I have a lot of conversation. I know a lot of people. We have a lot of kids that, I've got to see them grow up. So there's still a little bit of uncertainty whenever you get a kid away from home from the first time, and they don't have the same structure that they had at home. I mean, there's a little bit of uncertainty, but for most part, like, I get in their home and I see how they're raised. I see how they talk with their parents. I see the relationship, and I see if the parents hold them accountable. Are they backing, those type of, those principles, I mean, do they have something deeper to themselves, or is it just, hey, if I win and things are going great, then everything's great and I'm on top of the world? Or, am I going to point the finger somewhere else at everything? Or am I going to be willing to do this consistently? And I got to do it too. But I'm saying, I think those kids are out there, and, I get this BS all the time that, kids aren't the same, kids aren't the same. Kids aren't this or that. They're not as tough. They're not as this and that. It's like, well, I can tell you the kids that I'm around right now, I don't agree with that. I'm not fine with that.
These kids are tough. Like, look, I live in Southern California. We, by default, should have the softest kids in the country. I'm telling you right now, these sons of bitches are tough. Like Laird root is freaking tough. Even my son, right? My son actively, like, he got in, I don't know where he gets it from. He got in that cold water 3 times yesterday. Yeah, I'm a little inflamed, but yeah, let's just get in the cold water again, right? Let's get in 38-degree water again. You know, he's tough. Like he's he's not the best wrestler in the world right now, but I'm telling you, he's tough. These kids are tougher than shit. A lot of them. I would tend to agree with you. I wasn't getting in 38-degree water when I was a 16-year-old kid. No chance. No chance I was. These kids are super tough. And anybody that says, oh, every kid is soft, well, maybe you're just around the wrong kids.
Yeah. I think how they're raised, so the family dynamic and the parents and how they've been raised is such a critical part of.
Yeah, no kidding. Considering I gave myself frostbite yesterday. Did I tell you? I literally I gave myself frostbite on my back. It smiled, thank goodness, but I like almost had to go to the hospital because gave myself frostbite yesterday. So yeah, he definitely gets it from me. But you're right. But again, it does come down to
yes, the question though, Mike, about like how do you find them? They're out there. I think more than anything, they like hopefully they start to get attracted to what we're doing. It's like, hey man, this is, oh man, coach, the things that you're preaching, that's how I want to live. Because I hope every guy can win an NCAA title and national title, world title, Olympic title. Like, okay, there's only so many of those. Like, I want them to make sure that they leave whole and they leave in a better place than when they started. And wrestling gets us in the car together, right? It gets us a vehicle, it gets us moving in the same place. If I don't instill and try to put other things, lifelong things, I think if I don't try to put some of those things into our guys, I don't think I'm doing my job. And maybe not every coach feels that way, but if I don't leave them with more than just wrestling skills, then I don't think I've done my job.
Okay. So then what would you say to a Rob Cole that says any head coach that is in the wrestling room on a daily basis is wasting his time? You need to be a CEO. You need to be out there raising money. You need to be out there shaking hands and kissing babies and doing that kind of stuff.
I can do both. I can do both. Yeah, I can do both of them. But I want to invest my time into my athletes as much as possible. And the people see that, and I try to invite them in to be around. Come watch what we do. Come see how we invest in our guys. Come see the relationship that we have. Then feel it. So then
that's what it is to me. You're building a relationship. Look, it's really hard to have a connection with a coach that's not in the room.
I think you have to be both. So I get Rob's point in what he's saying, but hopefully I never get to the point where that's the only thing that I'm doing. I love being with our athletes too much and growing a relationship with them and investing in them. And the only way you build a trusting relationship, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about a trusting relationship where he looks at you and he knows, and he'll do anything that you ask him to do. And I'll do anything that he asks me to do, both sides. Like trusting relationship takes time. That is not a thing. Like I'm not a fancy talker. I am who I am. I don't try to put on some BS show. You can be a salesman all you want, but I'm going to sell what I believe. And, I know what Rob's saying, and he can talk to me till I'm blue in the face, and I'm probably not going to change my way because that's where I want to put my time and energy into. Right. And I got to be able to do both. And I feel like I'm able to do both, but man, I bring our guys and tell them I'm going to invest in them. So I got to invest in them. I got to put time into them.
How quickly do you think Allison would kick you out if you didn't have a wrestling room to go to every day?
It would be, well, she would kick me out in a hurry. Usually if she can tell when I haven't been around, I haven't been in for like a day. She's like, why don't you just go in the wrestling room? Get the hell out of here.
Yeah. For me, it's the sauna. She'll look at me, she'll go, where's the last time you got in that sauna? Shut up. And so I hear you. There's a certain level of output that has to happen for my mental stability, for sure. But you you mentioned something about being in it with the kids, and I don't know anyone else. I don't know anyone else that is in it as much as you are. Number one, how you're 46, 44,
Mm-hmm.
46.
46. Yeah.
Okay, so you're same age as me. How are you able to do it all with the kids? You condition with them, you wrestle hard with them, you drill with them. How are you able to do it at such a high level still?
I don't know how high a level it is.
Yeah, I can tell you, it's a
You have
pretty
to
darn
you
high
have to ask some of
level.
our you have to ask some of our guys how high level, but well, I think that it's something that I enjoy, and I think I take care of myself. I think sleep. I mean, you start to do research on how you got to take care of yourself, but I kind of just go back to, if I'm going to ask guys to do certain things and I'm not going to live it, like, and I know there's going to come a point in time where I can't do it maybe at that level, but as long as I can, I will. And I'll go back to what you brought up, Rob Cole. I'm not so stubborn to not understand that, hey, there's those things I need to do. Like, I get that I have to do those things, and I feel like I can do them well, and I get the transition. But as long as I can do it with our athletes, I'm going to continue to do it with them. And I need it. I need it for my mental health. I feel like if I'm not still trying to evolve and learn and improve and push boundaries in myself, like, then I stay stagnant. And if I stay stagnant, then how can I ask other guys to improve if I'm going to stay in place? I feel like that's what coaches get. They're like, well, I don't have to do that stuff anymore because I did that back then. No, you got to continue to do it. Like, it's, the rent's due every day, so to speak. And I
Okay,
think of
but
it in
hold
those.
on. But why? Why do you need to do it every day? And I have my own theories on this, but why do you feel like you need to do it every day? Why do you feel like you need to put yourself in the same shit as them?
Well, I don't want to forget how it feels, and it feels really good when after. And you know what? When I lay my head down at night, I'm like, I got a hell of a lot out of the day. I want to lay my head down every night and be like, man, I got a lot out of this day. Every day's a damn gift. Every opportunity that we get, and I think when you start to take it for granted, or like I said, I think sometimes coaches just get into where I don't have to do that anymore. Now, I've done that already, but then you forget about it really quickly, and then you forget how hard it can be at times. And I just think when you can relate to the athletes on that level and they see them doing it with you, I just think it builds a bond that is really hard to duplicate any other way. And like I said, I'm going to have to figure out, obviously I'm going to have to figure out as I get older to be able to do that on another level. But you get really intimate with guys, because you break down some walls when you're fatigued and tired and you're on that edge and fringe, like the trust that you have to take another step, and belief you have to have, not in me. I'm trying to get it past me. I'm trying to get it to them. And I feel like those things together, I feel like I can help a guy. I can't ever drag him over the line, but I can at least point him in the direction. And I keep trying to point the guy in the direction. And I don't know if I'm not going to, I just feel like if I'm not willing to do some of those things, then I'm going to have to reevaluate if I'm going to coach or not. And that's me, and maybe other guys are different. But that's just how I look at things. And, for some kids out there are probably like, hell yeah, that's the coach I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other guys are like, no, that guy's, he's crazy, or he's this or he's that. But
Well, you're definitely crazy.
But if I'm going to continue to find my edge, how are you going to find an edge? How can you find an edge staying soft? How can you find an edge not pushing or challenging yourself? How can you find an edge if I'm not willing to continue to sharpen myself? And now, is it always physically? No. I mean, there's other ways, and I'm trying to work on those pieces too. But if I'm not trying to better myself, then I'll tell you what, if I'm an athlete, I'm running away from those coaches.
I'm curious. You kind of talked about coaches who aren't wrestling all the time, that sometimes you can kind of forget how hard it is. Does taking part in the workouts and not forgetting how hard it can be sometimes impact, what your workouts end up being, or what your recovery ends up being?
Yeah, I mean, good. Yeah, it does. I mean, because sometimes I'll do some crazy things, and you realize how sore guys get in some of those things. But depending on timing of that, I like staying in the battle with them. You know, I mean, you think about the foxhole, like who do you want in the foxhole? I mean, who do I want in the foxhole with me? And I want to make sure that that son bitch is I look back and like, where the hell's he at? He ran out of here. And so I think you got to go through the fire with guys. And now, like I said, I'm at that point right now. Maybe 5 years from now, it's going to have to change, and I'm going to have to figure out another way to be able to to do that for and with my athletes. You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably a little bit goofy, but my body doesn't recover quite the same as it used to either. You know, these guys are, and sometimes I'm like, hey, dude, I'm 46 years old and I just ran a circle around you. That shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, that shouldn't happen. And more than anything, it's like sometimes it'll just be like, hey, when you live well and you take care of yourself, because I don't think, burnout, hey, there's only so much tread on the tires, so to speak. If you take care of yourself, you keep tread on your tires. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think some guys don't, or they're not improving, then it's a grind. I think when you're in the right frame of mind, man, it's the amount of work that you can do and how quickly it goes is incredible. When I think when you're focused on the wrong things, what are the wrong things? I don't know. It's different for each guy, but I'm saying
it is, but whatever your wrong things are, no, you're not wrong, because whatever your wrong things are, that you're focusing on them, and then you're not going to have the same type of energy, and energy is really what it kind of boils down to for me, because while taking the workouts as seriously as you do takes physical output and energy, the phone calls that you have to make, the recruiting calls, the fundraising calls, those take a tremendous amount of mental energy as well. Do you find that because you work out so hard, that you have a little bit more mental energy, or does that sometimes kick you in your ass?
No, I mean, they work together. I mean, they do. I mean, those things, like you said, the energy you can feel. So I go back to what your son said, like, I want people to be around, like they feel something. They feel different. They feel that energy, and I don't think you can fake that. It's something that's real, tangible. Like they're like, I just can't like point my point at, but I feel this, and that's in. So you go back to the calls, like I just be who I am. Like I have energy. It is so easy for me to talk about our program, and especially the guys that are going through our program right now and what they're doing and how committed they are to each other. And we didn't have a single guy leave this year. You have, you go through what we did in the fall, and every guy rallied around it, and you still had a national champion. And you have guys that are in there every day trying to work and improve and get better. And they're so committed to each other. Each guy understands his role. They're bought in. Like that is, I can't think of something easier to talk about other than, you see my picture of my kids back there, like my kids and my family, like that might be, but those things, I mean, you're going into the same realm, the same feeling, of what you have and the same pride that you have in those things. So I don't know, phone calls they're very easy to me because I'm not trying to sell something. I'm just talking about what we are and what we stand for. And that's not going to change. I mean, what I'm steeped in and what I believe in and what I try to instill into our athletes, that's not going to change 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Now, can I add little pieces to it and tinker a little bit? Yeah, but the overarching of what I stand for and who I am and how when I lay my head down at night, I'm going to feel good about it. That's not going to change.
Hey, Schwabi, you mentioned nobody left this year after the kind of shitstorm that was getting ripped out of West Gym and displaced and not having a room and that kind of stuff. And while that is impressive to me, that's something to be said. That is impressive. However, what is more impressive to me is a guy like Parker Keckeisen, who let's take away the national title. Let's go back a year before, right? So the year before, when he loses in the finals to Aaron Brooks, something tells me he got a couple phone calls after that NCAA tournament, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm sure he was offered a good chunk of change to leave and to go to somewhere that might sound like Penn State. And he didn't. And I go back and I literally use him as the shining example so often. Can you bring us back to that off season and maybe some of the conversations that you had with him that they probably didn't really deter him from leaving? If we're going to be honest, he probably wasn't going to leave anyway, but you do have to talk about it. And so can you just bring us back to some of those conversations?
He understand their relationship's not the same. So okay, I leave for money. It's transactional. What investment do you really have other than dollars? You don't have any personal investment. You don't have any relationship with them. You don't understand their wrestling. You don't know them as people. You're just a number. And that's not how he doesn't probably do well with that. Some guys might, they don't care. I don't care. It's just it's dollars. I don't need a connection with the coach, but he does, and he understands that, and he values relationships. And that's all I've ever told our guys. I said, not every relationship, not every place is going to be the same. And relationships take time. If you think all of a sudden you just got to trust this guy and you're going to connect, like they don't know you as a person at all. They know nothing about you. They've only seen you wrestle. And if that's enough for you, then you know what? I understand. But also then, we have to make sure that he knows and he can feel how much we care about him, but also like, okay, there's some things that we can do for you too. If financially the dollar amount is going to be number one for kids, they're probably never going to come to you and I. If that's going to be their number one, the number one thing is how much money am I going to get? How many dollars am I going to get? They're never going to come to you and I. But the one thing I'm certain of is that the investment and the time that's going to get put in, the care that they're going to get as them as an individual and person, and how that's going to stick with them beyond their wrestling years. I'll put that against anybody. And you know what? Then I'll ask him, how much is that worth? How much is that worth to you? How much is that peace of mind to know that, you know what, if coach calls, if I call, coaches, well, I might not answer the first time.
No shit. If you can figure out your phone, you might.
But coach is going to be there for you, and he genuinely cares about you as a person. And I get that there's money. Again, I'm not telling anyone not to get taken care of, but everyone that's seeing this life-changing money for these kids, okay, what are they doing with the money? Are you investing it? Are you putting it away? Are you doing something with it? Or are you just blowing it? How is that life-changing money? That's just like there's some things that I know that I've talked about and will do and continue to do for our guys. But that's more long range that I think is very important. That they see those things, but it just.
Can you talk about some of that stuff? I don't know if you can, but I think it's really important because you and I have spoken about that stuff privately, and it's having the insight to financially support athletes over a longer period of time. We're not talking about grabbing the bag. Okay. We're not talking about that. We're talking about teach. So it's always more valuable, right? The old adage, is it better to give a man a fish or teach him how to fish, right? So that's what you're looking at as a mentor to these kids. So if you could talk a little bit about kind of the structure that you guys are putting in place that might be different.
I mean, it's just more delayed gratification, right? Can you see beyond, or is everything right now the immediate? And if they can look beyond the immediate, and that we're really looking, we're more concerned about their whole future. Like, yeah, I want to win now, but at what cost? I mean, there's other things that to me are more important. So, and I would set these things up, but I'm saying I know what I would do, and some teams would do it, won't do it, but I think you also got to have parents that trust and believe and understand that, hey, okay, really, I have the long game in mind for my kid. Like some people, and I'm not telling them that it's wrong that they go get the money. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, for me, I would feel much better, and I feel much better if I'm able to do something for them where they could actually impact their life. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I mean, if, okay, so I can put X amount away for this guy, or you can't do certain things, but I'm saying if hey, here's what we're going to do. We're setting this up. I'll give you this piece, but the rest is going to go here.
Mhm.
And some people would be like, no way, I want all that money. And, the right people I think would be like, you know what? I like it. I like that you're thinking about me. And some parents I think would be like, you know what? I love that they're thinking beyond, that they're not just thinking about right now and, immediate what can we grab? Like, we're trying to set them up for the future. And I think that's what I'm trying to do for all these kids anyway. I'm not trying to just like these 5 years, I'm trying to get as much as I can out of you. How many points can you score at nationals? And then that's it. Like, I'm trying to leave them with something more. And then hopefully they're leaving everyone else with something more too, right? Because it's not just what can I get out of this? It's like, what can I give back? How can I enrich the situation? And I don't know. Those are the things that I'm looking for and trying to do and trying to look beyond. And the right parents and the right kids are like, man, that sings to me. That's what I want. And the other ones are like, hell no, I'm going over here, which that's fine. That makes it easy for me in the recruiting aspect.
Recruiting, you were on staff at Iowa. How is recruiting changed? How has your mindset towards recruiting changed from when you were an assistant coach at Iowa to when you're now the head coach at UNI? But here's the other thing about you as a head coach at UNI. It's not just the workouts that you go through. You have your hand in recruiting, which not every head coach does. You have your hand in practice planning. You have your hand in corner coaching. Like Tom Ryan, if you don't see him in a corner, not weird. To not see Doug Schwab in the corner is very strange to me at an event, right?
Yeah.
Tom Ryan, if he doesn't sit in the corner every time, it's not a big deal. That happens quite a bit. So you are very involved. How is that changed since you were in Iowa City to now?
Well, when you call and it's like, hey, Coach Schwab, University of Iowa, is like, there's not many kids that are like not pretty excited to get that call, because of Iowa and everything that had been behind it. So it's a pretty easy break in, right? Like you don't have to, not a whole lot of selling yourself.
Sure.
It speaks for itself, and you and I, it's like, you're trying to, hey, this is what we're doing. This isn't try to feel certain things and feel certain energy, and this is what we're trying to instill. And it takes a little bit of time to, you when you first get the job, you don't, what do I have to hang my head on other than where I was at before? But you're trying to build your own thing. Just relationships take time. That's the only thing I could tell you. You can't try to fast track. And I say trusting relationship because I think that's what the coach and athlete have to have. It's gotta be something deeper than just a surface. And that's where I think some of the transactional stuff, when that happens, like, how can you get beyond the surface with somebody in a couple conversations?
I don't know that you can, but okay.
So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
no, you did.
There's just certain pieces. There's certain things that I'm looking for that are beyond the wrestling. I can see that a lot of kids can wrestle very well, but we have 35 kids. So if you have 35 kids on your team, you tend to get to go to the Big 12 tournament and the national tournament. That leaves, what percent that's not even. So if you don't have guys that are bought into something else in their role and understand their role, and you're clear with people, that's really what I've tried to do these last few years, is be very clear about what our expectations are and what we stand for. So a kid comes in, they're like, Coach, I didn't know, man. I didn't know that was the deal. It's like, no, you knew full well. Like, we don't, there's no BS blowing. Like, this is who we are. This is what we talk about. And like I said, the things that I'm talking about, I'm going to talk about these guys, and that's not going away. Like, coach is different from recruiting. Like, no, this is the same guy. And that's what I hope for, guys that were here 14 years ago. They're like, well, maybe he's grown a little bit and he can talk a little bit more polished in those things. But as far as what I stand for and who I am and my commitment to them as a person, that hasn't changed. And I don't know. I think people see through it, and some people do, some people don't. Some people, that's what they want to be around. Some people don't. And that's why I just get out around kids. And, my wife puts up, she does our social media stuff. And I know, a lot of people get to hear some of the talks and those things. And that's what I talk about with our guys daily. You know, this life things. It's things beyond wrestling that apply to wrestling, obviously, but they can be taken beyond. And that's what I'm trying to instill in these guys every day. And, you know, hopefully 5 years, if you have 5 years around someone, hopefully you can have a little bit of an impact of the, you know, the direction that they go. And you want it to be a positive one.
I agree. So you mentioned that, and we're getting close to time here. But you mentioned Allison taking over social media and stuff like that. She does a great job. Tell me about the Panther brand. Like, you know, one of the things that, like you said you don't have to, when you picked up the phone when you were Coach Schwab at Iowa, it wasn't hard to sell the brand, because that's really what it is. It's like the kids know, they've seen the Gable videos, they've seen Tom and Terry, blah blah blah. Tell me about what you feel the Panther wrestling brand is right now.
Well, I think, you know, so Parker's an easy guy to talk about right now. I mean, you see how he trains and lives, and you know how he competes. So how he competes, he's got to train and live in a certain way to be able to compete like that. I mean, he takes as much risk as anybody. You know, you talk about kind of machine gun mindset, you know, that guy's got as much as anybody in the country right now, as far as how he wrestles. But then when you see how he is with his teammates and the energy that he brings and how selfless that he is, usually, you know, that you don't have that maybe in some of your best guys, you know? So, I mean, I don't know. I talk about being coachable. I talk about being gritty. I talk about being selfless. And I talk about, you know, the finger points here. You got a high level personal responsibility to yourself, to your team, to the program, to something bigger than yourself. But I think all these guys are bought into something bigger. And most of these guys are, you know, they're curious and they're continuously trying to improve. So I think when you have those elements together, then you make a great wrestler, but then you make a great husband and father, and whatever business they get into, or teacher, or whatever else, they're going to take that and they're going to use that down the line. But I think hopefully that becomes our brand. I think people are like, man, I really like those guys. And I like how they compete. And, you know, I don't know if you can really peg us for a style, you know, honestly.
No.
You know, we have a lot of guys that wrestle different ways, and we try to build off what they do well. Because there's a, you know, if I look at, so this morning working with Farber and Ryder, you know, there's some things that they both do well, and you try to build off those things instead of trying to like, well, hey, we're just going to fit you in this box. And that takes some time and energy. So you talk about relationship, that takes a little bit of, I got to know their wrestling a little bit.
They got to trust you too. They got to trust you.
Sure they do. Yeah, absolutely. Because I could try to box everybody into, well, this is how we're going to do everything. But my body type lends different than, you know, than Foster. And if I train Foster, if I try to train Foster like I train Parker, and then I try to train Ryder, and like all those guys is exactly the same. And I'm kind of diving off into another area.
But that's part of it. That's part of it.
But I kind of, you know.
I get it. Okay, so let's talk about Parker for one more second. I know we're getting close on time, Joel, and Joel's going to kill me, but I could do this all day.
We get bonus one.
Yeah, we're in overtime. So I want to talk about Parker for a second. You know, look, he kind of got over the hump this year, won national title. Really excited for him. I assume, I'm just going to make a pretty bold assumption in that he has bigger goals than just an NCAA title. I think he wants to win world and Olympic gold medals. Where does he need to improve in order to do that?
The belief in himself, the trust in himself. I mean, honestly, like he puts so much time into his wrestling and his skills, and I mean, he even going into trials this year, you know, he could have went to trials, and like it's something you have to want to do, but you know, it's like, I'm not ready. I'm like, dude, as good as the way your attacks looked, you're ready. You know, I mean, there's some parts here, there's some transitions, some edge of the mat, but I mean, that dude is incredible on the edge of the mat. Like what awareness he has. Like, so he's ready for all those pieces and elements. It's just, so I'll tell you, going into the Big 12s, he's like, I'm going to bonus. So he told the team, and, we talk, and we'll have talks and do those things. He's like, okay, I'm going to bonus through both those tournaments. And he did. He bonus through both those tournaments, but he made his mind up. But I think the biggest thing for him is he enjoyed competing, and he's got some other guys that are competing. A guy like Ryder, he watched Ryder win that Big 12 title, and he's like, man, it inspired him so much. He's so much of a team guy that when he has some other people that are along the ride with him, and he doesn't feel like it's maybe all on him, it just helps him. It lets some of that, maybe that weight off that maybe can build up. But for him, it's just like, and I know Brooks, I mean, Brooks that's a tall task for anybody in the world,
sure.
But
if you look at the last David Taylor match with Brooks, and you look at the last Keckeisen match with Brooks, the Keckeisen match was significantly closer. Now it's a year later, it's a lot of pounds. There's a lot of things to it, but it's a closer match.
Yeah, I think in him enjoying competing and loving competing, he talked about it a bunch. You heard him, but I think the guys on the team have made it that like they're having fun when they're competing. They're going after something, they're training their asses off. But man, like, it's not a heavy feeling. It's like, man, we're really going after something. Let's do this together. And just, man, how much the energy that they feed off one another. But I think for him, it's becomes as much a mental battle as it, because I've watched how much time he's put into wrestling, and you see his skills and how his skills evolved. And he's done an incredible job with him. I mean, and though that, when you have that kind of relationship and trust, man, you can get so much out of an athlete. And he does that for our team. But I mean, just the trust and belief that he has in us, that he stayed this year when he could have ran and left, but he wants to do it at UNI. He knows it's the best place for him. And
that's it.
I mean, if he's not a fan favorite, I'm telling you, like, I'm obviously,
and he
biased,
is. He absolutely is.
If he's not someone in the country that every person's like, you know what? Because like Lyra is, like, when he went back, I was like, awesome, man. I called Nickerson up. I'm like, damn right. Because everyone else wants these guys to go all these other places. Like, why do you guys want, like, you because it's big time, right? Oh, it's big time. They're big time. That's such bullshit, man. Big time is a frame of mind. Big time is investment in the person. Like, we can win here just as anywhere else. Just because you have more resources doesn't make it big time. Just because you have more people or more money doesn't make it any better. I mean, we've been all over the world and we've seen what people have been able to win with. It is the people. And man, if I had every resource in the world, Mike, I would say the same thing.
I agree. And I believe you. And I don't believe many people that say that stuff, because some of them, it's a bunch of lip service for sure. All right, we got to get to our quick hitters. All right, here we go. You're going to answer these questions as quickly as you can. Don't think too much about them. Who is the best recruiter in college wrestling right now?
Oh man. It's pretty hard to say it's not Kale. I mean, because one, I know he puts some heat on guys, because I've through the years knowing, but also, like, I think just what they've been able to do is a pretty easy thing. It's a pretty easy sell, but they built it and they build. But I think he's able to put and apply some pressure to guys, and like, yeah, man, like, well, hell yeah, why wouldn't you want to come here? I mean, they made it easy, but I think even before they had won, I think they've done a pretty good job of that. I can think of a few guys that maybe under the radar. A guy like Engel. I think that guy does a fantastic job out at Oregon State. I think he's he's a good coach all the way around. But I've heard really good things about
him in the living room. I've heard is very good as well. Yeah, no,
so in there's guys that I think are more geared towards some of that stuff. I just, like I said, I don't try to rush certain things, man. I'm just not a sales pitch.
No, that's the thing. We just the insight that you lend to that is important. It's not so much about what it is for you. It's just like, yeah, understood. Okay, what's the best wrestling shoe of all time?
Oh man, I like the Pursuits a lot.
Oh,
that was one of my favorites. And actually, I'll tell you a little story. So I told Farber, and Farber's, he's got his own site and he does all that stuff. And he asked me, "Hey, what were your favorite wrestling shoes?" And I said, "Well, these." And then about 2 weeks later, there was a pair of them in front of my locker.
No.
Which is pretty awesome. And I would say I wear them once in a while, but I wore those in college. But Rulons, once you had Rulons broke in, awesome. Yeah. But you had to break them in.
They were stiff at first, for sure.
Those two, and I don't. Nike has gotten better with their shoes, so I wear those a whole bunch now. But I'd have a hard time over Pursuit or Rulon would probably be.
Fair enough.
Pursuits,
P1s or P2s?
P2s.
Yeah, I like the camel were awesome.
Yep. Doug, if your boy's listening to the show and he can randomly have rare wrestling shoes show up at a doorstep, if anybody wants to send me ASICS Supreme Light Flex ones,
Supreme Light Flex ones. Get on it, Farber. All right, here we go. Schwabi, if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the sport of wrestling, what would it be?
I should listen to you. I know these are coming, and then you're still like.
They still surprise you.
Well, I think I don't want everyone to understand wrestling because I think that takes something away from it. But I think just the appreciation, from a fringe fan is hard. But right now I'm kind of like, man, I think I want to go to a push out, honestly. Across the board, and maybe part of me is like, I love folk style, but are we geared towards maybe a freestyle only? I kind of went back in between those, but maybe you kind of hybrid it and start to go to a push out type thing, because I just think we're getting close to where we're needing some of that, because you've seen how much the edge is getting gamed.
Yeah.
And so I think I like that from a sport perspective.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
If we could endow every program, if I can, so I'll go to Magic Wand and we can endow every program. So, because I just think wrestling's too important. Wrestling's too important to our country, I just think what it instills, and my daughters, before I'm like, I don't know about girl wrestling. Now I'm like, well, if it instills that in my son, why wouldn't I now want that instilled in my daughters?
First thing that Ayers said. That's the first thing that Ayers said, to me, 6 years ago, when I sat him down and said, how the heck did you get New Jersey to say yes to women's wrestling? And first of all, it was his wife, not him. He'll give his wife all the credit too. But he said, it's very simple. He goes, all I thought about was, look at all the positive benefits it did for me and my son. Why would I not want that same thing for my daughter? Okay.
So maybe it would be like, you can't drop a program, maybe that would be my magic wand right now. There's no dropping a program. So we got to stay where we're at, and then we can build from there. Cause
that's fair.
And the product's getting so good that
it is. It really is. I agree with that. It's becoming a product, which I don't know that it was before. Okay, last one. You get 4, and they got to be American. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Man. Well, I mean, Burroughs for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he to me showed what a pro is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, really, like he's a pro. He's the first guy you're like, man, this guy's a pro.
Yep.
and obviously he won behind it, but I'm just saying, like, Margaret's help. I think so many people, like, if you remember a time when he kind of came in, we weren't winning a lot.
No.
We weren't getting a lot of medals.
Watching the 2010 World Championships was not easy.
And I'll say, I was on a couple of teams and didn't play. So, some of that's on me. But, I mean, I think people take for granted now how much we're winning and I feel like he helped really push that. And he's done it for so long, when you have that kind of longevity. John Smith, you win 6 in a row. That kind of longevity is, man, that's a really,
rare air, Schwabi, for sure. 6 in a row is wild.
Or contemporary right now, I'm gonna have a hard time not putting Snyder on there because he's he's got a medal every year.
Every year,
right? I mean, every year he's got a medal so far, and he's not done.
And he ain't real close. Like he still looks real good.
Yeah. Man. So you got to get me to 4 because if I don't put Gable on, I might I'm going to probably hear it from him. But it's hard not to put him or Kale, one of those two, because, you know,
you got to choose one. Don't you cop out on me, Schwabi.
I know if I'm looking at career, you know, am I looking at wrestling? Am I looking at coaching? Am I looking at all pieces of it? You know, to not have, I don't think you could have a Mount Rushmore and not have Gable because of kind of what he helped build, the impact that he had. Like if I'm just looking at it in wrestling terms, and those guys didn't have that long of careers either. Right. You know, so a guy like,
but it's impact overall, 100%.
Well, impact over time. You know, from now, I mean, Gable's got to be up there. I'm going to put it. I would probably put Gable, Sanderson, Burrows, Smith.
Okay. So okay. That's fair.
And, I mean,
so you have the correct Mount Rushmore, right, Joel?
I think so. I mean, just from what, if I start to put in what Kale's now done as a coach, it's hard not to, because I mean, you're starting to see all those things that they had with Gable, you know, with him now. It's like, well, we got to figure out what the hell he's doing. Well, one thing is, you know, they're getting their guys better, man. They're bought into something. And I don't think it's that hard to see. I mean, you go back to what I said with Iowa, like when you come in and you know you can win and you believe you can win and you have that evidence in front of you. And that's what, you know, hopefully we produce enough evidence for, you know, our guys and our recruits that how they're going to get taken care of. You know, as a person. And I think we've created that evidence and we can win here and those things. So I'm selling my program a little bit here at the end.
No, it's fine. No, I get it. But it is about the relationships. And both you and I, both me and Lee, and actually I brought it up on the podcast more than once. I think that's the commodity of the future. Because the dollars and cents will be there. I truly believe that the relationships that we build in this sport will be the commodity of the future of wrestling. And at least I hope so. Maybe I'm just super optimistic, but we do got to run. Schwabi, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for jumping on with us, man. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us on, man. And hey, I got to ask, I see he's got that San Francisco 49ers hat on. Are they going to get rid of Ayuk? Is he going to come to the Steelers?
I hope not.
I've heard that that's going to happen. I hope it does.
I don't know. Hopefully not this year. Maybe next year. But he's another one. He's holding out for the he's got the money that he's got. So we'll see what happens there.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on and the time and, you know, getting me an opportunity to share some of our program and platform a little bit. And you know, I love what you guys are doing. So, man, I think the more that we can get our stories out there and get people understand what wrestling really instills and the type of people that are in the sport, then, man, I don't know why you wouldn't want to be part of it.
You're the best, Schwabi. I appreciate you, brother. I'll talk to you real soon, all right?
All right, thanks.
Wait. Don't go anywhere. Before you hit that next button, if you enjoyed listening to this episode, do us a huge favor. Click that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, leave a review and share it.
What you want to know, man? Welcome to the show.